Hello, my name is Alex. Today we are starting a brand new series on the BrainCan channel where I will be reviewing neuroscience books. I am Vasilisa's husband. I am not a neuroscientist. I do not specialize in it and have no special knowledge. But I and my wife, we spend a lot of time discussing different books by interesting authors, and we thought it would be interesting to have my opinion on them, as it may be more relatable for you, because not all of you are neuroscientists, at least I hope so. So the first book that we have picked for today is Felt Time by Dr. Marc Wittmann. Dr. Wittmann spent a long time in the United States and is currently working at the University of Freiburg, and he studies time perception. Now, why should we care about time perception? Time perception is one of the major keys to happiness, and you can explore this in this book. Time is a very important signal. It tells us whether we should do less of something or more of something. So when we find that something is boring, this means that we do not find it motivating, and when we find that time passes by fast and pleasantly for us, that is a signal that our brain is telling us that we should do more of something. This is actually quite interesting because the relationship of time with people has changed a lot over the last 200 years or so. Time used to be event-based. We used to make decisions on what we should do now based on some preceding event. But since the Industrial Revolution, time has changed, and now, at least in the developed world, it is completely clock-based. So we are forced to undertake different kinds of behavior, regardless of whether it makes sense for us. It's just time to go to work, time to go home, time to go to sleep. This is also, as Dr. Wittmann describes, one of the sources of unhappiness in the modern world, because what we discover is that different humans have different time rhythms. There are larks, there are night owls, somebody likes to work after eating, before eating, late or early, and today we are all put into the same box where we must all follow the same clock. And understanding this is important for your own personal happiness, because if you understand what kind of clock you want to follow, you can adjust your life and be happier. Now, I am also a writer, so I always look at how someone writes the book, how pleasant it is to read, and Dr. Wittmann is very, very precise. So the book is a product both of his mastery over the language and of the translator who translated it from German into English, who is Eric Butler. I think we should mention him for the great work that he did. But the book doesn't have anything extra. It covers a lot of topics quite well and concisely, and I really cannot fault it for any stylistic issues. It is very clear to me that he knew what he wanted to write, and that this is the book that he wanted to write, that he didn't want to, for example, write the next great detective American novel and was forced to write a non-fiction book, which happens very often. No, he wanted to describe time perception, and he did do it clearly and concisely. I can recommend it without reserve. It's interesting how older experiments get described in the literature. For example, the Felt Time book came out in 2014, and Dr. Wittmann describes this rather ancient marshmallow test where children are given either one marshmallow right now or two marshmallows a bit later and must decide, and this is used to predict their future success. However, right now it is known that this has more to do with risk aversion and how rich and successful and safe the families from which the children come are. But this is a general issue with literature of which we need to be mindful of, that the experiments may have been reinterpreted. The main thing that was new for me was primarily the different rhythms which exist in creatures which are responsible for time, and also the way that our memory and perception of time is discretely broken up into pieces. I am an economist by training. For me, time has always been continuous. Another interesting thing is how the value through time changes. This is governed by natural rhythms, such as the circadian rhythm, which tells us when we wake up and when we go to sleep, and by our yearly rhythms as our planet goes along the sun. This means that we value something a lot more if it happens today than if it happens tomorrow. Overall, it is interesting how we perceive different scales of time. So the present moment, as Dr. Wittmann describes, is about 30 milliseconds long, so about 0.3 seconds. This is the time that it takes the brain to synthesize all the information that comes into it and perceive it as a whole. Then we have an interval of about 3 seconds, which is what we would perceive as the present. And then we go into longer and longer memory storage. And this is proven partially by studying patients with brain injuries, because depending on what is injured, the perception of time at different scale may be impacted. So someone would be able to carry out a short conversation with you, but then they would completely forget it 15 minutes after and not remember that it happened at all. There is also an interesting thing that I have found to be a bit of a paradox in the book. Dr. Wittmann describes that usually time speeds up as you get older, and the primary reason for this is that there are fewer new challenges and there are fewer new experiences connected with them. This, however, is not true if, as you get older, you get thrown into new circumstances and must get new skills and must do new things. So I personally have not found that to be the case. And Dr. Wittmann finishes by discussing his view on consciousness, describing that it is this unbroken temporal feeling of body awareness, which I have also find to be a quite interesting view, although for me as a layman it suffers from the same issue as always, which is we describe what conscious beings do, but not so much, at least for me, as what consciousness is, what conscious experience is. Overall, I have found this to be a fascinating book, primarily because our perception of the flow of events is one of the major factors of how happy we are and how fulfilled with our life we can be. And the way we can manage time, the way we can avoid boredom or getting overwhelmed, or the way we can train ourselves with mindfulness not to fall into situations when the flow of time is unpleasant, all these ways can lead us to a happier and more fulfilled life, which is the main reason why I read neuroscience literature. I'm not so much interested in the scientific facts themselves, as I am interested in what I can change in my life to live a better and more fulfilled life.